Hi, in today's video, I would like to tackle a problem of whether you should or should not be lifting your fingers or play with high fingers when practicing or playing the piano. I would like to introduce to you some advantages and disadvantages doing it this way, and at the end of the video, I'll give you some ideas on how to practice piano safely if for whatever reason you decide to use high finger technique. So first, let's begin with the reasons why you should not be doing this. Firstly, and I think that's one of the most important aspects why you should not be doing this, because overdoing it tends to lead to injury or problems with your piano technique rather than helping it. Even if at the very beginning of using this method you feel that there is a sense of progress, very often long term this can be quite deceiving and lead to more serious issues. The simple reason for it is, amongst many others, is that if we consider that how our hand is hanging next to our body when we walk, if this is our perfect hand position, now extending your fingers very high up extends those muscles beyond their usual way and tenses those muscles quite a lot as well. Which means that our hand tends to be overused this way, not to mention the idea of double pulling of muscles above and underneath the forearm. So just for the sake of safety, anyone who decides to play with high fingers, I would just ask you to be careful not to injure yourself. The second reason why this might not be a good idea is simply because it produces rather a percussive tone and it does not allow us for a nice and continuous phrasing. So can you imagine playing a phrase of a Chopin nocturne with high fingers? It basically sounds like every note is played on its own with, as I mentioned before, quite percussive character. Now, on the other hand, particularly at the very beginning of education, I think teachers who apply this method, they get a sense of progress. So it means that right at the beginning, it seems like the student can play stronger with more clarity. Now, the issue is whether this can be maintained for longer periods of times, let's say years to come. And again, that problem of the sound produced this way. Now, I would like to offer you two different approaches to this. One, for those who for some reason decide to practice this way, I think to make this practice a bit safer for yourself, make sure that you don't sit too high. I would like to explain why. Sorry, I will move my chair a little bit higher up first. So if you sit high like this, and your hand is already slanting downwards, if you lift your finger up, I think the muscles here are quite stretched, and in here they are very tensed. Now, if you lower your sitting position, you will see that because the forearm is already lower, lifting the finger produces a lot less tension in here and a lot less stretch. So in general, if for whatever reasons you decide to play with high fingers, make sure that you don't sit too high. That tends to prevent the injury. The second idea, if you are looking for some middle ground in here, is to imagine that instead of lifting your fingers, that your fingers permanently live on the first floor, so they are a little bit above the keyboard. Yes, so instead of resting on the keyboard, they live on the first floor due to your hand position, and you are not purposely lifting the fingers up, but actually allowing each finger to simply fall onto the key, so kind of in this way. Yes. Now again, whether this is the sound you want to produce or a style, this is up to you. But those two suggestions should help you find a middle ground if you find yourself having to do this. Now, as a final note, as Rimsky-Korsakov once said that there are no ugly sounds in an orchestra, it's just the problem is with finding the right place where to put that particular sound. I think the same goes for piano technique. Maybe if you are playing a Prokofiev sonata, let's say, and you want that very sharp, clear kind of sound, which doesn't necessarily preclude being a bit more percussive, then maybe high finger action or high air finger action comparing to what you normally do might be justified. Again, on the other side, we have Chopin nocturnes and beautiful singing quality lines, which call for much closer way of approaching the keyboard. So, again, I hope this makes sense.